Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto Was a Shinigami? While in the Forest of Death Orochimaru seals away the Kyubi. This however will lead a new power awakening within the Kyubi container. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description down below. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. Soul Society, the true name for what humans have come to heaven or nirvana. It consists of two portions, Rakangai and Serite. Rakangai made up most of Soul Society and is where most people lived. Serite, or the court of pure souls, was where the nobility and Shinigami lived. Serite was the exact center of Soul Society and has 4 entrances. Naruto listed dutifully as Unohana told him of the place. They had arrived not long ago and were currently on their way to the office of the Commander General. He had noticed however that when he exited the portal he was once more in the Shinigami uniform he had when he first transformed. Apparently only spiritual forms could pass through the portal, which is why he was transformed according to his uncle, that is. After walking a few more minutes they arrived at their destination. Naruto after quick consideration opted against a mask of any kind, deciding to show his true self to any who might be in the room. When they entered the room he noticed there were already 4 people inside. He noticed that both the white-haired boy and black-haired girl were in the room. In the front of the room stood an older man that reminded him much of the Sandaime. The difference between the two was this man was bald, had a long white beard and carried a staff. The person who caught his attention the most however was someone he could never forget. Whereas before the man wore the robes of a Kage he had traded them for those of a Shinigami. The blonde's eyes watered at the sight, and he disappeared in a blur, latching himself onto the man with a cry of Oji-san. Sarutobi hit the ground with an oomph, though he smiled at the boy that was clinging to him and crying in his shoulder. After a moment though the blonde sobered up and glared at the older man, causing him to recoil. "What the hell is wrong with you, old man?" said Naruto, though he continued before the old man could rebuke. "Shikifujin is forbidden for a reason. You wouldn't even let me use my Roki no Jutsu, and here you are using that technique," finished the blonde, causing the old man to chuckle. "How are you here anyway? I read from the scroll that the Shinigami eats your soul," asked the blonde curiously. "Wait, what do you mean Shinigami eating souls?" asked Unohana curiously. "The Shikifujin is Konoha's most forbidden technique, as it calls on the Shinigami himself to seal away the soul of a target. The price however is that the user must also give up his own soul," said Naruto. "So you did get past Raiden?" "Ryuden," said Sarutobi. "Of course I memorized that whole scroll. I'm just not crazy enough to try all the techniques," said Naruto with a smirk. The cough from above quickly brought the two back to focus as they quickly got to their feet. Once that was done everyone turned to the old man that was standing in the front of the room. Satisfied he had their attention the man spoke. "Kichiki Nemikaze Naruto," spoke the old man getting a nod from the blonde. "It is good to finally meet you. We've actually been searching for you for over a decade, as we had heard you were dead," said the old man. "Yes, Byakuya-sama has told me as much," said Naruto, slipping into a role he'd once seen Neji play after he'd removed the stick from his ass. "Tell me, how has your life been in Konoha?" said the older man. "To put it simply," said Naruto, looking him right in the eye. "It was hell," finished the blonde, shocking many. "If it wasn't for Sarutobi Oji-san I would be dead," explained Naruto. "Yes, he's told me as much, though you must have friends there," said the old man. "A few," answered Naruto simply. "Though I'm starting to question that as well," finished the blonde, getting a raised eyebrow from both older men in the room. "Sasuke defected to Odo," said Naruto simply to Sarutobi. "Anything else?" asked Sarutobi wearily. "He shoved a Chidori through my stomach and left me for dead," said Naruto, his eyes turning icy. Sarutobi sighed hearing this. He'd always known that boy was trouble, but the council wouldn't hear of such things when concerning their precious Uchiha. Though the moment Naruto's name was brought up half of them called for his death. That thought alone made his eyebrow twitch. "A Chidori?" asked the older man. "It's an air rank assassination technique created by one of Konoha's finest, the copy ninja Kakashi. It's basically a blade made of lightning that can cut through anything," explained Sarutobi. "Though that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that guy with the glasses and silver hair," spoke Toshiro, gaining everyone's attention. "Explain," said Yamamoto. Naruto here had already won their battle with what he called the Kitsune or Sengen. "That guy apparently had been waiting and stabbed Naruto through the back with a katana," explained Toshiro. It was after this that the Kai Kabuto healed this Sasuke, who afterwards shoved the Chidori through Naruto's stomach, finished Byakuya. How do you know? Asked Toshiro. One of the shinobi there has a technique that lets people see others' memories, said Byakuya. Anyway, we've also heard of your battle with Shukaku, said Yamamoto, getting a raised eyebrow from the blonde. Hitsugaya Taisho was monitoring you then as well, explained Yamamoto, getting a nod from the blonde. After some more seemingly random discussions, Naruto was introduced to the rest of the people in the room, most of which were captains and their lieutenants. After this, Yamamoto was just about to speak when his door was slammed open, and an angry-looking woman walked in. You'd better have a damn good reason for summoning the old man, said the woman with a glare in her black eyes. Actually I do, said Yamamoto, ignoring the glare and the old man comment. It concerns your son, said Yamamoto. What about him, said the woman worriedly. We found him. He's right behind you, said Yamamoto. The woman who Naruto had been studying whipped around quickly in his direction. Once her eyes landed on him, her eyes went wide. It was at this moment another person entered the room. Kushina, was that really? His words died in his throat at who he saw. Naruto snapped around at the man's entrance. Naruto knew immediately who this was, and the glare in his eyes would have froze the man's soul if they had the power. You, snarled the blonde. Just then the genin blurred and appeared in front of him, delivering a heavy right hook to the man's jaw. The man skidded back a couple of feet before he brought his hand up to his jaw and rubbed it. When he looked up, it was to the enraged eyes of one pissed off Naruto. See, I told you that would happen, said Sarutobi with a smirk. Was that really necessary? Asked the man. I've got half a mind to shove a Rasengan down your throat, snarled Naruto. But I can settle with just my claws, finished the blonde, flexing his hands which turned into claws. Naruto, would you really kill your own father? Asked the man. No, but I'll settle for tormenting you, said Naruto. But it's Aizen's blood that I want, finished the blonde with a demonic grin more suited for Jiraiya. This got reactions from just about everyone in the room. Most of the people in the room quickly turned serious eyes on the blonde. The exception is those who didn't know of Aizen. How do you know of Aizen? Asked Yamamoto. It was Aizen that caused Kyuubi's rampage through Fire Country, answered Byakuya. Every Shinigami in the room remembered that. They had sent plenty of pluses to Soul Society during that time. As a result, each captain was also swamped with paperwork. This thought made several eyebrows twitch, and one old man tightened his grip on his staff. After a few more moments, they were once more immersed in conversation. When it got down to Naruto's training, however, Yamamoto spoke up. Naruto's situation is rather unique. As it stands, I believe he would have most likely been raised in the ways of a Shinigami anyway, said Yamamoto, getting a nod from Sonia. Because he lives in the human realm, he cannot go to the academy, said Yamamoto. However, anyone that wants to can train him, said Yamamoto with a smile. I would suggest starting with theory and control before moving to anything practical, said Byakuya. Why? Asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. Because you have no control of your Ryatsu, said Byakuya, getting a sheepish look from the blonde. Right, we'll start with theory and move on to control after that, said Sonia. Right then, Naruto-kun, Sonia and Sarutobi will direct you to the Kachiki estates while the captains and I have a brief meeting, said Yamamoto, getting a nod from Naruto, who quickly left the room. Konoha. Kyuubi sighed as she looked out the window of the room. It was far too boring for her without Naruto around to torment. Her presence in Konoha was obviously kept a secret, as such she couldn't leave the mansion. It's not like she had anywhere to go if she did though, as her only connection to this village was Naruto, and he was gone. Her musing was cut short, however, as a presence hit her senses. She froze for a moment before snapping into action. She couldn't let him come here as he normally would. It was with that thought that she disappeared in a whirl of fire. Serte. The walk to the estates had been made silently. Though it was a comfortable silence one all four people involved enjoyed. It was the reunion of their family after all. Naruto had noticed that most of the Shinigami looked at his mother, as if she was some sort of god, a being they couldn't believe they were seeing. Naruto himself had sported the look one time in his life. That was when the old man had first gotten him his apartment and simultaneously introduced him to Tenten. While distrustful of them both in the beginning, he had warmed up to, and eventually saw them as the family he never had. Not long after that, he and Tenten had met Hinata while she was crying in the park. They had been close ever since and were the only people he'd massacre a village for. A small smile formed on his face at the thought of his sister and best friend. The expression, of course, was not missed by Sarutobi, who smiled himself. It wasn't often Naruto had a true smile on his face after all. Hey, called Naruto, breaking the silence. Minato, who he was looking at, nodded, showing he had his attention. Why did you add the suppression seal? Asked Naruto with a glare. Which one? Asked Minato. The one that not only cut off my Reiatsu but hindered my abilities as well, said the younger blonde with a glare. Wait, you mean to tell me I couldn't find him because you cut off his Reiatsu? Said Kushina with a glare. Hey, don't blame me, I thought you'd still be there, said Minato in his defense. I would have if that damn medic wouldn't have told me he was dead, said Kushina with a snarl. Anyway, Naruto, the seal was designed after your mother told me of the things Shinigami normally encounter, such as hollows, explained Minato. Hollows? Questioned the blonde. They're basically ghosts. They're the result of a soul staying too long in the human world after they have died. You'll learn more about them later on, explained Kushina. Right after I found out about them, I designed the seal to suppress your Reiatsu, since hollows hunt those with high amounts of Reiatsu. As a baby you already possessed a high amount and would have been a sitting duck had I not sealed it up, though it wasn't sealed too tight, explained Minato. I had actually left the instructions for its removal at the clan house, so your mother could remove it when she started training you, finished the former Hokage. How did you remove it, Naruto-kun? Asked Kushina. Kyuubi flooded it with her chakra until it broke, said Naruto like it was nothing. Any further conversation was cut off as they reached the estate. Both Naruto and Minato were in awe of the place. Like the Hyuga estates, it was decorated in the traditional Japanese fashion. The place had a large garden along with a pond and enough room to train in. After the boys had snapped out of their awe, Kushina guided them through the house. After walking around a bit and Sonia explaining about the estates, they came upon the bedrooms. All of the bedrooms had tatami flooring and shoji doors. The one they were in, however, also had a sliding glass door which had a deck outside leading to another garden. I had this room built when I first learned I was pregnant, said Kushina with a small smile. Naruto looked around and saw the room had a desk on one side and a dresser on the other. On the dresser sat 3 pictures. The first was of Arashi and Sonia sitting and holding each other overlooking Konoha from on top of the Hokage monument. The second was a picture of Minato and a very pregnant Kushina, both holding one hand over her stomach and smiling. The third, however, caught his attention the most. It was of a young girl with long dark blue hair. She looked to be around 13 years old. She wore a black outfit similar to old-style shinobi outfits, and had a smile on her face. Next to her was a girl who looked to be about 17 years old. She had short purple hair and brown eyes. She had golden brown skin and yellow eyes with black pupils. She wore an all-white gown and also had a small smile on her face. Those two are Shihun Yurichi and Fan Sholin, though she now goes by Soifun, said Sonia with a smile. This picture was taken just after Soifun was named as your fiancé, said Sonia, causing Naruto to snap his head in her direction. Don't look like that. All members of the Kachiki clan have marriages arranged before they are born. Some of us just don't marry them, as is the case for Byakuya and myself, said Kushina, getting a nod from Naruto. I had planned on raising you in human world, and then bringing you here to meet her when you were close to her age, which is why you were born in Konoha, said Kushina. Yurichi and I had served as captains together in the Gate 13, and were best friends. She had been watching Sholin, who is her cousin, for a while, and decided to take her as an apprentice. She had made plenty of plans for the girl as she held great potential. We eventually decided that you two would be good together and arranged the marriage, said Kushina. Anyway, as you probably guessed, this is your room. Ours is down the hall and around the corner to the right. The one across from you I had it designed for Soifun for when she stayed here. The rest are all guest rooms for whoever you invite over, said Kushina before she turned and left the room. Naruto, said Minato, catching his attention. I don't know if you noticed or not, but you no longer have access to your chakra. Regrettably, I can't train you myself as I still don't have much Reiatsu, as unlike Sarutobi I didn't die before that technique finished, said Minato, getting a nod from the blonde. However, I will design a training manual for you for when you return to human world, said Minato, getting a nod from the younger blonde. Konoha. Kyuubi walked with her father by her side towards the tower. It had taken a bit of convincing, but she talked her father into taking on his human form here. Unlike her, however, her father completely loathed his human form, though she didn't blame him. The man had far too many fangirls for her liking. Arriving at the tower, the two wasted no time entering and walking up the stairs towards Tsunade's office. Along the way, Kyuubi noticed that they were receiving curious glances from the nin who worked there. Once they reached the top floor, the pair walked right by the secretary and into Tsunade's office. Tsunade, who was engaged in a fierce battle against paperwork, looked up as the two entered the room. Raising her left hand, she watched as several puffs of smoke appeared around the office. Nodding towards the door, she watched as the Anbu members complied with her request and left the room. Once they were gone, the male sighed before leaving his human form for his demon form. Once he was settled, he had a pair of red fox ears on his head, and 9 tails that swayed behind him. Along with it he had long red hair and slitted gold eyes. Otusama, this is Tsunade, this village's leader, introduced Kyubi, getting a nod from the man. Tsunade, this is my father, the original Kyubi, and the man your stories are about, spoke Kyubi, getting a nod from the Godai may as well. Now I have waited long enough, Kyubi, you will explain why I have not heard from you in over a decade, said the man in a commanding tone of voice. I was sealed, said Kyubi immediately, though looking away. Surely these humans couldn't have a seal that could contain for long, asked the Fox Lord, spitting out the word human in distaste. Actually, spoke Tsunade, gaining their attention. The seal that held her was designed by my cousin and the former leader of this village. It actually called on the Shinigami to seal the target away into the body of a newborn, as nothing else would be strong enough to contain her, explained Tsunade. The Fox Lord snarled hearing this. These flesh rats had the ability to summon the Shinigamis. Well, they weren't a problem for one such as him, knowing they could seal away someone as strong as his daughter hit a nerve. Even still, something wasn't sitting right and he needed to know what. Explain everything, said the male. It was Aizen's doing, snarled Kyubi, her eyes flashing red at the memory of the man. I had found out he had broken the rules and sided with the Hollows. You remember the Hajoko, Orb of Destruction, said Kyubi. Har Kisuke's invention, said the Lord. Yes, apparently Aizen believed Hollows to have more potential than Shinigamis, said Kyubi. So he planned on seeing this potential so he could grow stronger, finished the Fox Lord. Yes, and apparently Shibakin's death was a part of it. I found this out and was on my way to inform you when he cornered me and placed me in an illusion with his Zanpakuto, said Kyubi. But a Shinigami's death is no concern of ours, said the Fox Lord. It is when the Shinigami was absorbed by a Hallow, said Kyubi. He then sent her in this direction where she attacked the country in an illusion-induced rage, until my cousin sealed her, said Tsunade. Who was the child you were sealed in, asked the Lord. His name is SmartNaruto, said Kyubi, dreading this part. The Lord said nothing before looking into his daughter's pink eyes, his own golden ones glowing. He then saw every memory the girl had concerning Naruto, as well as the ones she had seen from Naruto himself. In the end he was impressed with the child, though when he backed away his eyebrow was twitching. Oh shit, thought Kyubi with a bit of panic. You gave some of our blood to a human, said the Lord. Then we have no choice, he said with a sigh. Oh shit, he's going to kill him. I knew this would happen, thought Kyubi, inwardly shaking. You will become his mate, said the Lord, causing Kyubi to nearly fall on her face. What, stuttered Kyubi, unsure if she'd heard correctly. You heard me, the boy is now part demon, and has the blood of a Kyubi going through him. You have no choice now but to do it, besides it's not as if you don't want to finish the Lord. Now we are returning home, your sister has been awaiting your return, said the Lord, getting a nod from his daughter. Tsunade, I will be here when Naruto returns, said Kyubi, getting a nod from the Godaime. With that said, both father and daughter disappeared in a whirl of fire. Once they were gone, Tsunade sighed before pulling the sake from the hidden compartment in her drawer. Nakai. The Council of 9, demon worlds equivalent to the Shinigami. However, where the Shinigami kept the balance of souls in human world, the Council of 9 kept the balance of power. Meaning anyone who gained more power than what the king allowed was destroyed. As the Shinigami had the Gate 13, the Council had the Bijuu, its elite forces. It was with them all actions that were done by the Bijuu were accounted for or assigned. In fact, with the exception of summoned creatures, all demons were monitored by the Council. As such, Kyubi was now in front of them once more, explaining the circumstances of her disappearance among other things. This is most distressing, said one of them, a brown three-headed dog with a distinctively male voice. Yes, it is, and I'm beginning to think the disappearance of all the other Bijuu was no accident, said another, this time being a green seven-tailed dragon. I knew a Shikaku, but the others are gone as well, asked Kyubi. Yes, they all started to disappear around the time you left for your last mission, said the Fox Lord. Well, if it helps, I know where Shikaku is, said Kyubi, causing everyone to shift their attention to her. She then proceeded to explain about Garai and then the Akatsuki who she had found out about from Naruto. This is most disturbing indeed, mumbled a black two-tailed cat after the vixen had finished. Certes, 6 months later. Naruto sighed as he stared up at the sky. He was currently on his back staring at the clouds and lost in thought. In the last 6 months he'd learned quite a lot about Certes and Shinigami. He'd also tracked down Haku and had his reunion with her. Both had been working on using their bloodline with Ryatsu instead of chakra, though they had little success. He had also gotten to know both Hitsugaya and Hinamori as well. Hitsugaya reminded him a lot of himself, and they had quickly become friends. Hinamori, however, had been different, as she'd been in a funk for the last year. He had learned that she once served under Aizen as his lieutenant. He had also heard how the man had used her and left her for dead after she'd served her purpose. It had taken him a while, but he eventually managed to convince her that Aizen had never cared for anyone but himself, and that he didn't deserve her loyalty. His relationship with his family had also developed nicely. He and his father were alike in many ways and trained in his taijutsu every day. His mother had been determined to make him book smart instead of just street smart, and was working him to the bone. His uncle, however, had named him as the heir to the family, as he himself never had any children with his wife. All in all, the last 6 months had been rather good for the blonde. Elsewhere, the captains of the Gate 13 had gathered once again. This time, however, it was to discuss the placement of the academy graduates. After a while, it had came down to the final person who Serite had dubbed as a genius's Senjuhaku. Senjuhaku is the most balanced Shinigami I've seen in a while, spoke Anohana, catching everyone's attention. She is the first in class. She excels in all arts of the Shinigami, including medical arts, said Anohana. She has also been working on a side project, spoke Anohana, catching just about everyone's attention again. Before she died, she had the ability to control ice. She's been working to regain that ability, except using her Ryatsu instead, the chakra that she used in life, explained Anohana. And how far has she come with that, asked Soifin, the only other female captain. She can now make small balls of ice as well as needles made of ice. Though she said it's nothing compared to what she could do before, responded Anohana. Right, well, since she's good with medic techniques, we'll put her in the 4th division, said Yamamoto, getting nods all around. Once that was done, everyone moved to get up when Yamamoto spoke again. Byakuya Taicho, how's Naruto's progress? We're ahead of schedule. He knows everything a Shinigami should know, that's theory-based, and his control has improved, though it's still not that great. Though the good news is he has more control than Carrot Top, said Byakuya, getting a glare from an orange-haired man that looked to be in his mid-teens. Did stick up his ass, just make a joke, said the orange-haired Shinigami. Before it could go any further, Yamamoto spoke up once more. I figured that he'd have a hard time with control with as much Ryatsu as he has, stated Yamamoto. Let's send him to Karakura in 2 days' time for further training. Soifin Taicho and Momofuku Taicho shall join him. I've talked to Kurosaki Isin, who will be training his control. Kisuke has agreed to teaching him to use his Zanpakuto, and Yurichi would train him anyway, once she knows who he is, said Yamamoto, getting nods all around. With that done, everyone but Soifin left, leaving the general alone. Is there something I can help you with, Soifin Taicho asked Yamamoto. Yes, why am I going with him? With Yurichi-sama there already, it really isn't necessary, said Soifin. You're going to get to know your fiancé better, said Yamamoto with a small smirk, seeing the surprised look on her face. I didn't know you knew, and I thought he died, said Soifin quietly. I was there when Kushina made the proposal, and before you ask, yes, Naruto knows, but you should know something as well, said Yamamoto, gaining the captain's attention. I've recently talked to his aunt in human world, and found out he has other fiancés, said Yamamoto, causing the woman to raise her eyebrows. Apparently he's known one of them since childhood, though he doesn't know they're engaged, said Sarutobi. Then the other would be Kyubi herself, which he also doesn't know about, said Yamamoto. I've also noticed Momofuku Taicho has had her eye on him, finished the general. What is with all these women, said Soifin with an eye twitching. Hey, it's better for you as well, he does have a clan to revive, said Yamamoto, getting a nod from the girl who blushed scarlet. I would suggest you going to see him, said Yamamoto, only to get a nod from the girl before she turned and walked out of the room. Karakura town is one of the many districts of Tokyo, Japan, and borders Naruki City on the west. It is also the town with the highest Ryatsu reading in human world. This of course would be the reason that it has such a concentration of hollows there. Rumor has it that Karakura is also the location where the royal key must be created. The royal key is of course the tool used to access the dimensional space of the king himself. The rumor has it that the creation of the key would require a concentration of 100,000 souls to be created. Upon its creation, however, the key would vaporize all of Karakura town. While no one knows if this is true or not, one thing remains a fact. That would be Karakura town is home to some extremely powerful Ryatsu levels. These levels come from a select group of individuals, though most are more than a match for your average Shinigami or Hollow. In fact, some can stand toe-to-toe with captains of the Gate 13, a few of them are even members or former members of the Gate 13. It is here that we now find one Kachiki Naruto as he emerged from the portal on an empty street. Along with him are the captain of the Gate 13 2nd Division Soifin, and the Fukuteicho of the 5th Division Momo Hinamori. Naruto grinned, feeling his chakra once again flowing through him. He smiled foxily, remembering he now had the training routine that his father himself had used. Taking stock of himself, he was happy to see his clothes still fit. Unstrapping his pouch, he checked his supply of shuriken and explosive tags. Next, he did a quick inspection on his favorite weapons, his kunai. Pressing the bladed end into his finger, he nodded, seeing it draw blood, and grinned as soon as the small wound healed up. After placing the weapon back into its place, he flipped both his wrist, and 2 more kunai shot into his hands. After testing these out as well, he nodded to the 2 girls. Soifun raised an eyebrow seeing this. The kid looked like he was going to war with as many weapons as he had on him. Hinamori was also shocked by this, as she'd never seen this many weapons on one person before. Both women quickly shook themselves from their shock though, and focused on the task at hand, as well as fighting to keep the blushes from covering their faces. "Naruto, I need you to find the highest levels of Ryatsu in the town, so you know where we're headed," said Soifun, getting a nod from the blonde. Closing his eyes, the blonde concentrated his own Ryatsu for the task. Both women were surprised to see his Ryatsu surround him before he was surrounded by threats on all sides. His hand raised and he grabbed hold of quite a few threats before his eyes snapped open. "That way," said the blonde, his hand pointing in the direction it had been raised. Iraku thought both Soifun and Hinamori in shock. To think he could do something as high level as using spear threads. He really is the same as Kurosaki, thought Soifun. "Right then, shall we go, Soifun Taicho," said Hinamori, snapping Soifun from her thoughts. "I hope you can keep up, Naruto," said Soifun with a smirk. "If you could lose me, I'd have to get my body back in shape," said Naruto with a smirk of his own. Ever since he was young, the blonde had known his speed was essential to his survival. As such, he had trained his speed more than anything else, which was proven as he could easily outrun most chunin. 20 minutes later found the trio in front of a small shop of some kind. The sign up front had it labeled as the Urahara shop. Without any hesitation, Soifun walked up and opened the door before heading inside, followed closely by the other 2. Once they came upon a large group of people. The first he noticed was a man with pale blonde hair wearing black pants with a black kimono with a diamond pattern on the bottom, under which was a green robe. On his head was a striped green and white bucket hat. Sitting across the man's lap was a brown cane. The next person he noticed was a young boy with fiery red hair sitting next to a young girl with her black hair and 2 ponytails on both sides of her head. Finally, he noticed another dark-skinned man who wore glasses and braids. The man he noted had a muscle structure that rivaled Guy's. "Ah, Soifun Taicho, I was expecting you," said the bucket hat wearing man. "I see. Our room's prepared," Urahara-san said Soifun. "Hi Jinta, Urahara, please guide the young one and Momofuku Taicho to the guest rooms," said the newly introduced Urahara, getting nods from the 2. "So that's him, Kushina's son," said Urahara as soon as the 4 had left. "Hi," answered Soifun. "I've already contacted Yuruchi, she should be here tomorrow. Kushina has also informed me that she wants you and Naruto to share the room, so I've arranged it as such," said Urahara, getting a nod from the captain. "His control lessons start at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning with Issen. Depending how well he does, he'll start his training with his Zanpakuto soon after," said Urahara, once more getting a nod from the woman. "Now tell me how things have been, Soi-chan," said Urahara with a smirk. Once Naruto reached the room, he looked around, finding 2 futons rolled up in front of him. Knowing his mother most likely had something to do with this, he shrugged it off and removed his coat. Once that was done, he quickly bit his thumb and ran the blood over his summoning tattoo. There was a puff of smoke, and there in front of him once again stood Taka. "How can I help you, Naruto-kun?" said the vixen. "Can you deliver a message for me?" asked the blonde, receiving a nod from the vixen. Next day. Konoha. Tsunade sighed as she listened to the council members bickering in front of her. It had only been a month since Naruto had left, and already news about the retrieval mission had spread. The villagers had of course immediately blamed Naruto for not only the Uchiha's defection, but the mission's failure. They had even gone as far as demanding the boy's death, something that had caused Jiraiya to release all of his killing intent. This eventually led to the meeting she was in now. In all of Konoha, only a few people even knew Naruto was gone. Those people were Tenten, Hinata, Shikamaru, Jiraiya, and Tsunade herself. Other than that, no one even knew he was out of the hospital, since Jiraiya felt nobody else should know as he's supposed to be dead. Tsunade saw Mikal Chauza breaking the blonde Hokage from her thoughts. Mumbled Sundi, turning in his direction. "I was asking how Naruto is doing," said Chauza, concerned. "Oh, he was completely healed last I heard. I'm waiting to hear from him sooner or later," said Tsunade, casually, causing more than a few eyebrows to be raised. "What do you mean? I thought he was still in the hospital," said Tsun confusedly. "He was out of the hospital the night the team got back," said Tsunade. Then where is he now? Asked Hamura, lacking any malice in his voice for once when regarding the boy. Don't know, he left the village the same night, said Tsunade, causing everyone to go wide-eyed. What do you mean he left? Said Danzo heatedly. What did I say? Said Tsunade. Then he must be marked as a missing nin, said one of the civilian council members, getting nods from the other civilians in the room. He's not a missing nin when the Hokage knows when he leaves, said Tsunade, glaring at the group. Before anything else could be said, there was a puff of smoke in the room. Everyone tensed, seeing this, not sure what it could be. When the smoke cleared, there was a red three-tailed kitsune in the center of the table. Turning and sniffing the room, Taka finally found the scent she was searching for. So you must be Tsunade, said Taka, getting a nod from the women. Yes, who sent you, the princess or the lord? Said Tsunade evenly. Neither, Naruto-kun did, said Taka, making the blonde go wide-eyed, while most other people were just confused. Anyway, he wanted me to tell you that his training is going well, and he'll meet up with the pervert in a year and a half where you two first met, said Taka, getting a nod from Tsunade. Also, he gave me this to deliver for you to read to the council whenever you called them, said Taka, handing over a scroll she had in her tail. Once that was done, Taka disappeared in a puff of smoke. Looking at the scroll, she noticed it had a blood seal, and quickly broke it before reading it aloud. To the Konoha Council. First of all, let me say that I am extremely disappointed in Konoha. I left specific instructions of how I wanted Naruto to be treated, and you did the opposite. I have a feeling that was mostly because of those stupid civilians on the council. Either way, I am far from pleased. If you haven't figured it out by now, I am the fourth Fire Shadow. I am only writing this just to let you know that there will be hell to pay for your crimes against my son. And don't think that just because I'm dead I can't make good on my threats, because you see, soon I'll be finishing my own training in the Shinigami arts. And just so you know, I've heard of all of your crimes. Hamura and Kaharu trying to have my son killed in his crib. Danzo trying to draft him into the root since before he could walk so you could turn him into a weapon only loyal to yourself. You civilians took every chance you could to make his life hell. You even spread the rumor that he was the Kyubi incarnate when you knew it wasn't true. You also treated him like the plague, kept the children away, and beat him every chance you could get. For all of these crimes you have been found guilty. But I'm not the one you should worry about, for when Naruto returns he won't be alone. Don't even think about asking for mercy either, because she will have none. As the saying goes, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. This is especially true when it is a mother who you separated from her son for 12 years. Also, whoever gave the order to tell my wife our son was dead, just know that not even in death shall you rest. For you will then be at my mercy as well as the mercy of his entire family. I look forward to that day. From The Yellow Flash, Namikaze Minato. The room was eerily silent after that was read. Those who had supported the boy were all happy that they had, since it meant they'd get to live. Those who hadn't, well, let's just say they weren't looking forward to when Naruto returned. Finally, after a while, one of the civilian council members spoke up. It's a trick, there's no way that could be real, said the man, gaining everyone's attention. First of all, there's only one Shinigami. Secondly, Yondaime is dead and there is no way that the Kyubi brat is his son, said the same man. Actually, there is more than one Shinigami, said Hiashi, suddenly getting nods from those who knew. The healed Kiba and Akamaru, said Tsum. Choji too, said Chauza. And Neji, said Hiashi. Then they healed Naruto and left to train him, said Tsunade. Each time someone said something, the civilians and the three elders felt like they got hit in the stomach. Oh, and just so you know how I know it could happen, spoke Tsunade, catching their attention. Naruto's mother is the former head of the Kachiki family. They are a family of Shinigamis and are the equivalent to the Hyuga and Uchiha clans combined, said Swan, shocking everyone. Wait, his mother is the former head, said Shikaku. Hi, she passed the title on to her brother. You remember Kachiki Byakuya, said Tsunade with a smirk. Now anything Naruto related is SS class secret, said Tsunade suddenly and very seriously, catching everyone's attention. Jiraiya and I have already come up with a plan concerning a few people, and we can't have news on Naruto leaking to our enemies, said Tsunade, getting nods all around. If anyone speaks, you will find yourself doing the paperwork of everyone in this room, said Tsunade, making everyone, even the normally stoic Hyuga and Aburum, shudder in fear. Also, Uchiha Sasuke is now considered a B-rank missing nin. He is to be captured or killed on sight, said Tsunade, shocking the civilians. But Tsunade-sama, he's the last Uchiha. Without him we'd lose the Sharingan, said a pink-haired civilian. The Sharingan is already lost. And unless Kakashi has children, which I seriously doubt, it's going to stay that way, said Tsunade. Also, Danzo, I need you to do something for me, said Tsunade, catching his attention. Find a way to let out the information of Uzumaki Naruto's death at the hands of Odo, said Tsunade, shocking everyone. I don't understand, said Chaozu. It's simple, said Tsunade. Akatsuki was after Naruto for the Kyubi, so they needed him alive. The group is composed of 9 S-class missing nins, one of which being Uchiha Itachi, said Tsunade. I see, said Shikaku, catching everyone's attention. When the news of Naruto's death reaches the Akatsuki, it'll take their anger out on Odo and Orochimaru, said Shikaku. Also Team 7 under Hatake Kakashi has been officially disbanded, said Tsunade, catching everyone's attention, especially the pink-haired woman, as that was her daughter's cell. Since the Hibi wants to play, we'll play hardball, said Tsunade, confusing many. Jiraiya, said Tsunade before a blur appeared on the room's back wall which revealed Jiraiya. When Naruto returns, you are to teach him everything you can, said Tsunade, getting a nod from the man. Katetsu called Tsunade. The door opened and the Jonin walked in. Have Haruno Sakura report to my office in 20 minutes and not a second after. Hi Hokage-sama, said Katetsu before he left to do his task. Tsunade, you're not thinking what I think you are, said Jiraiya, confusing some. Yes, it's the birth of new generation of Sannin, said Tsunade, shocking many once again. Do you think they can do it, said Jiraiya seriously. This is Naruto we're talking about. If he can't do it, no one can, said Tsunade with a smirk. Fine, I'll see you in a few years. It looks like I'll be putting the Gaki through the same training as I did Minato, said Jiraiya before he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Danzo sent some of the roots to Tea Country, said Tsunade, catching his attention. The group of Armenian have been spotted there, one of which carrying the Raijin. I want that blade back. Should my uncle's sword be returned to me, you may just live after Kushina's return, said Tsunade. With that said, she stood up. Everyone, seeing this as a sign of dismissal, stood as well and left the room. Karakura town. Naruto arrived at the Kurosaki clinic at exactly 10 o'clock. He had of course been up since 6 and training at Urahara's. He had spent that time working on perfecting the Rasengan. All he needed was a bit more control, and he'd have it. Shaking himself from his thoughts, he walked inside and rang the buzzer that they had. After about 2 minutes, a little girl with short brown hair came out. Can I help you, said the girl. Yes, I'm here to see Kurosaki-san, he's expecting me, said Naruto, getting a nod from the girl. Okay, follow me, said the girl. Following the girl who had introduced herself as Yuzu, he soon found himself in a dining room. Once he was in the room, he came upon a few people. The first was a girl he knew was Yuzu's age with black hair. Across from her sat a boy with orange hair who looked a few years older than Naruto himself. Next to him was another girl with black hair that Naruto immediately recognized as Rukia. Finally, at the head of the table was the man he had come to see. Yuzu, why did you bring him up here, said Isin before she could answer. However, Naruto spoke up. Kurosaki Isin, former captain of the Gate 13's 10th division. You are known as one of the strongest Shinigami to ever live, said Naruto, shocking everyone who turned to look at the man. Kichiki Naruto, son of Kichiki Kushina. Rumor had it you were dead, said Isin seriously, shocking everyone. Yes, I was aware. My mother said you were trustworthy. In fact, you were a witness to her marriage with my father, said Naruto. Yes, I was. Do you have any combat experience, said Isin. Instead of answering, Naruto simply pulled his hitite from his pocket and showed it to him. Yamamoto-sama has spoken highly of you. I hope you don't disappoint, said Isin. In fact, he told me you could actually surpass Ichigo here in power, said Isin, once again shocking everyone. Kurosaki Ichigo, the infamous substitute Shinigami. Kichiki Rukia of the 13th division, said Naruto, nodding to both of them. Your mother taught you well, I see, said Isin, causing Naruto to nearly shudder. I hate bookwork, said Naruto, getting an understanding nod from Isin. Well, since I'll be teaching you, I might as well teach the idiot here as well, so he won't be spilling out Ryatsu all the time anymore, said Isin. With that said, the older man closed his eyes before he glowed blue. When the glow died down, his clothes had changed and he was now in his Shinigami form. His Hiyori, however, had no sign on the back and was worn as a sash over his left shoulder. Why do you not have a sign on your back, asked Naruto. When you lose your position during battle instead of retirement, you no longer wear the sign of the division's captain, explained Isin. Well, come on you three, and you too, Karen, we might as well begin your training as well, said Isin before moving out. Moving through the house for a bit, they came to a large grandfather clock. Reaching inside, the former captain pulled on the pendulum rod. Once he did that, the clock slid to the side, revealing a narrow doorway. Walking through and down several flights of stairs, they soon found themselves in a very spacious and rocky area. This is, said Ichigo in shock. Yes, the training grounds under the Urahara shop. It actually stretches from the shop to the clinic, said Isin. Alright Naruto, let's see how much Ryatsu you have and don't hold back, said Isin. The blonde nodded, hearing this before he disappeared in a puff of smoke, only to reappear a few yards away from them. Once he did that, he closed his eyes and let down all the barriers holding back his Ryatsu. Naruto was surrounded by a golden glow for a moment, then his Ryatsu burst outward, completely covering him. Finally, after a few minutes, it died down. When it did, he was once more in his Shinigami form, his Zanpakuto in its sheath on his back. Man, I haven't seen this much Ryatsu in a kid since Toshiro, said Isin. What's wrong, Dad? asked Karen. He's got as much Ryatsu as a lieutenant-level Shinigami, said Isin. After a moment more, the blonde rose the barriers back up and retuned to normal, though he kept his Zanpakuto. Karen, did you get a feel for his Ryatsu? said Isin, getting a nod from the girl. But then I want you to try to find something similar in yourself. I won't allow what happened to Ichigo to happen to you, said Isin. Ichigo-san, can I ask you a question? asked Naruto after a few moments. Sure, said the orange-haired teen. You're part demon, aren't you? said Naruto, shocking both Isin and Ichigo. Why would you think that? said Ichigo. I can smell it. The demon in you, though it's low class, it's still a demon, said Naruto. It's a hollow, said Ichigo with a sigh. Hollows are low-class demons that wish they were high-class, said Naruto with a smirk. Any further conversation was cut off when a golden glow took up the field. Turning, they found Karen now in the robes of a Shinigami, her Zanpakuto in its sheath at her side. Once that was done, Isin got to work drilling them on how to control their Ryatsu. A few hours later, Urahara himself showed up. With him were Soifun, Hinamori and Yuruchi. Okay Naruto, here how things are going to go, said Urahara, catching the blonde's attention. Every morning you'll have control training with Isin from 7 to 10 am. From 12 to 3 pm you will be trained in hand-to-hand combat by Yuruchi and Soifun. From 4 to 7 pm you'll be training with Hinamori and Kido. And from 7 to 10 I'll be training you on Zanpakuto combat, said Urahara, getting a nod from the blonde. For 3 months this was Naruto's schedule. The hours between times he spent getting to know Soifun and Hinamori better. The other 2 hours he usually spent with Yuzu and Karen, who had quickly become like sisters to him. He had also started teaching Yuzu about the ninja arts, as she often felt powerless when near her siblings. His control had greatly increased as he no longer had so many barriers up to hold back his Ryatsu. In fact, he had cut the barriers from 10 down to 2, thanks to Isin's training. His Kido training had also done well, though he favored Hato, blast spells, over everything else. In fact, for a few of them he no longer even had to use the incantation. His training with Yuruchi and Soifun had also produced results. The first thing they had taught him was Shunpo, Flash Step. Their warm-ups was actually a game of tag to see if Naruto could catch them. In the 3rd month he had finally caught Soifun, though it was only once. The results of which had them on the ground with Naruto on top of her and his face buried in her breast, something Yuruchi never let them live down. Yuruchi, however, was proving why she had gotten her nickname every time. His training with Urahara, however, was different. The bucket hat wearing man had pointed out all the flaws in the blonde's stance the very first day, and corrected them. After that it was all theory on Zanpakutos and how they worked. He also had him doing meditation to work on the blonde's short amount of patience. Now, however, he was meditating for a different purpose. Urahara had told him it was time he met his Zanpakuto face to face. He had said that unless he did, their training could go no further. It is for this reason Naruto was now walking the halls of his mind. Mindscape. Following the pull, he felt he soon found himself in the now familiar room from when he first came to his mind, and when he had awoken his Shinigami powers. Walking down the stairs, he soon found himself once more overlooking Konoha from the Hokage monument. Only this time something was different, that something would be the storm clouds in the sky with streaks of lightning passing through it. Finally one bolt fell from the sky before striking the monument and setting it ablaze. Out of the fire walked a single man. The man was tall with long silver hair. He wore a long black coat with plate armor on the shoulders. He also wore black pants that led to belted black boots. On his hands he wore a pair of black gloves. Finally he had bright emerald green eyes that had slits for pupils. So you have finally come, said the man in an emotionless voice. Naruto said nothing and merely looked out over Konoha. The man, seeing this, turned to look out over it as well. What would you do with my power should I grant it, said the man. The same as I always do, walk down my path with no regrets, said Naruto. And should your path cross with the Uchihas, said the man. I will not hold back, said Naruto seriously. You have lived a hard life and yet you have not faltered once. Such a thing is hard for anyone, especially a child. Should you need my strength you will know what to do, said the man before silence settled over them. After a few minutes the silence was once again broken, this time by Naruto. You speak of this as if you have experience, said the blonde. I do. I was not always a Zanpakuto spirit. I once lived in the world just as you do. It was only after I died that I was remade into a Zanpakuto spirit. However, during my life I let my pain and anger get to me. I suggest you don't do the same, said the man, getting a nod from the blonde. After a few more minutes Naruto nodded, receiving one back before turning away. The last thing he heard before he left was the name of his Zanpakuto. Real world. Urahara watched Naruto while enjoying a conversation with Orochi. It had been about 2 hours since Naruto had entered his meditational trance. There were 2 ways for a Shinigami to learn their Zanpakuto's name. The most common was for the Shinigami to be in danger, and their Zanpakuto helps them out. The less common, however, was to gain their respect and have them come to you. The first method he had used with Ichigo, as they had had little time. The second was the way Naruto was now doing it. Their conversation stopped, however, when both Naruto and his Zanpakuto pulse blew a few times before the glow died down, and he opened his eyes. Well then, said Urahara with a smile. It's time for the real training to begin, he finished as Orochi grinned. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.